So today there was a rally outside at the People's Plaza, and probably maybe 100 people showed up from Little Earth, people who are associated with the East Phillips Neighborhood Institute and allies of all types. And we were expressing our frustration at the city for wanting to demolish the Roof Depot building in East Phillips. And so there was singing, there were speeches, stuff like that. And then after that rally, we decided that, well, the person we really need to talk to is Mayor Fry. And so we decided to just walk right on up here and try to get a meeting with them because their race equity analysis for the Roof Depot site says that they have an open door policy. And so we said, okay, well, show us if you really have an open door policy. I would tell him that what he's doing is creating yet another problem associated with colonialism, with pollution, with climate change, with environmental racism, and that these decisions that are made today have impacts that carry on 20, 30, 40, 100 years. It's hard to know how long it can carry on. And that if he really wants to champion things like low-income housing, if he really wants to champion things like environmental justice, that and public participation, all things that he has publicly said he cares about, let alone publicly saying that he would support the East Phillips Neighborhood Institute in our cause, that if he really wants to stick by his word, then he has to listen to the people who stand outside of City Hall not every day, but we're at our house, but that we stand outside of City Hall and we're asking, please don't demolish this building. And I just want to hear his response when asked head on, why? Why are you doing this?
Mayor Frey, why are you doing the demolition on the Roof Depot when people at Little Earth matter there? No, I'm not going to stop, and we are not going to. We do not want demo on our people at Little Earth matter. Why are you here for your show?
Today is MMIW.
You're here for your show, and you're gonna take pictures with us, but then you're gonna sit there and you're gonna pollute us. You're not welcome here. Our indigenous people do not care about your Mayor Frey. Why don't you answer my question?
And I don't want the answer to be about money. I don't want the answer to be about efficiency, because I think those are empty. Those are empty words, and they are excuses. What I want to see him recognize is that his actions are harming people, and I want him to have that inner realization that will convince him to change his mind. All land on Turtle Island that is now under US, Canada, Mexico, South American countries, all of this land is stolen land. They are government systems, infrastructure systems built upon land that was stolen. So that's first and foremost. And then the history of injustices are probably too long for any historian to know. But a couple of instances of injustice here in Minneapolis. The first one that I want to speak to is Fort Snelling. And Fort Snelling is at the Batote of the the Minnesota and the Mississippi rivers. And that fort is sitting on the genesis spot of the Dakota people. And it is flying in the face of the religion, the connection to the earth of Dakota people in this area. So that's the first thing that I think is just an awful piece of history that our mayor should really learn. The second thing is in the 1910s in Minneapolis that racial covenants became a really big practice. And that basically were these contracts on the deeds of property that said that anybody but white people can't live in particular places. So it was a Jim Crow that was sort of carved out of this legal loophole, and that white people in Minneapolis decided to enact. Then in the 1930s, there was redlining, and redlining further demolished communities by saying, well, this community, legally because it has non-white people in it, it's okay to perform eminent domain and cut interstates into our cities. So East Phillips is a part of that, those districts that received low ratings in the redlining, and to this day is experiencing higher rates of asthma and stuff like that because of its proximity to 3 highways. And then in the 1930s to the 1960s in East Phillips, there was a pesticide manufacturer, and they made lead arsenic pesticides. And this pesticide is in the form of dust, and it wafted throughout the East Phillips neighborhood. And it wasn't until the 1990s that when they were redoing Highway 55 that they noticed that there were levels of arsenic in East Phillips soils that were 10, 20 times higher than what the legal limit is for anybody's health. And so they decided to put it on the Superfund list and to do some remediation. And that remediation was completed in 2011, but there are certain sites that were not remediated. And the Roof Depot is one of those sites that was not remediated. And there has been preliminary testing that shows that there are VOCs present, volatile organic compounds that are present. There are petroleum spills that have happened on that site, and there is high levels of arsenic in that soil. And the destruction of the Roof Depot building will kick all of those chemicals back up into the air and spread them throughout, not just East Phillips, but Seward and Longfellow and other neighborhoods in the South City. And so that's like a brief history of environmental racism that's happened in Minneapolis. And it's just so sad that in 2023, when there's all of this talk about environmental racism, they'll pass laws about it. They're going to go forward and do another, they're proposing another infrastructure that's going to continue to poison our area. And I'm not saying that they should put it anywhere, but at the very least, they shouldn't put it in the neighborhood that's gotten the worst amounts of pollution already in the last hundreds of years. I think it's important to know that all of these things that I'm talking about are actually from government data, that I am getting a lot of this information from the environmental assessment worksheet that CPED, which is Community Planning and Economic Development, within the city of Minneapolis, they put together. This information is coming from the EPA. It's coming from common public knowledge. And it leads me to wonder, how is it that politicians and decision makers in our city, knowing the history and knowing the toxicity, continue to move forward anyway? And when you start asking that question, the only answers that really make sense are they don't care, and they just hope that they can generate enough benefit to the wealthy communities while silencing the poorer communities, that they can maintain their power while simultaneously enacting injustice within their city. It's really sad. And there's just a Malcolm X quote I want to say, which is, I have to conclude, either you've been duped yourself or you're trying to dupe me. So either they're ignorant or they're trying to pull one over on us. And either of those are not sufficient answers for me. The only answer that makes sense is to not demolish that building.